we have built something that will change politics forever. The work we have done will be remembered forever. We are fighting to become once more what Wisconsin has always been, a place where our future is determined not by corporations and billionaires, but our future that's determined by the working class people who live here.
The far left took a gut punch in Wisconsin. Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong walked into election night with a polling lead and the backing of the National Progressive Movement. She walked out with a concession and more questions than answers heading into November. Welcome to the Big Money Show, everyone. I'm Jackie DeAngelis, along with my co-hosts, Jerry Willis, Dagan McDowell, and Brian Bremberg. And with us for the hour, Fox and Friends weekend co-host, Griff Jenkins. Great to have you.
Welcome. Thank you.
For the second straight week, socialism is playing better on social media than it is at the ballot box. Far-left candidates are struggling to win over working-class and rural voters in the Midwest. The progressive base is increasingly white and affluent, and that is becoming a real problem for the party nationwide. Take New York, for example. An internal survey of New York City's DSA finds its own membership is less diverse than the Democratic Party overall. Republicans are pointing to Wisconsin as another sign that the socialist surge may have a ceiling.
Francesca Hong's case, it's common sense versus dangerously crazy. If you look at the facts, democratic socialism never works. It's not in the past. It's right now in places like Venezuela. We've got to get that message out. If we get the truth out, and I think Tom Tiffany's doing an absolutely great job of that, if we get the truth out, this race will be locked in.
Okay, when it comes to financial data, Griff, I always say a bad jobs report or a CPI number might be a one-off. Let's wait and see if we have a trend. And that's kind of how I'm looking at some of these races. So obviously, Michigan Senate, not a great sort of test run. And I was watching this race in Wisconsin thinking to myself, are we going to start to build a trend here? And we didn't. So what do you make of that? Just different states, different people?
Well, we know this much, Jackie, and that is the path to a socialist utopia does not run through the Badger State.
Right.
There's another important political lesson here for every future politician. And if nothing else, Francesca Hong just proved that holiday hating, especially when it comes to Thanksgiving, is political kryptonite. CNN's data guru was doing a thing literally showing that when it comes to the number of Americans that believe the moon landing was fake is 12%. The percentage of Americans that think the earth is flat, 10%. The percentage of Americans that hate Thanksgiving, only 8%. I think you can't overlook that. Literally, she was a flawed candidate. But on the serious note, you do look at what was different about it. As you're looking for a trend, what was different was that Bernie Sanders and AOC did not get behind Hong's campaign. The polling was way off with her up 20%. I mean, she woke up on election day up 20 points by the recent polling, and then she lost. But the question about the trends and what we saw in New York and what we saw happen in Colorado and in Pennsylvania elsewhere with these DSA-backed candidates, in Wisconsin, it was more nuanced because of the fact that David Crowley got out of the race, didn't get back in until July because everyone else was getting back out. And then the governor, Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers, gets in, starts campaigning with them. That may be an outlier, if you will. The next test will come when the DSA candidate Oliver Larkin down in Florida is going against Moskowitz, who is no moderate Democrat by any means. It'll be whether or not, we see this happening in other places, and Florida would be perhaps a real test case.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so they saw through Francesca Hong, voters did, Brian. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole, so just bear with me, and then I'll get to it. We were talking about that article that I saw in the New York Post about New York City rents peaking. One of the reasons listed in the article is because the rent freeze that Mandami implemented has the owners of those units not putting them on the market because they don't want to be subject to that. Right. So as a result of it, supply has gone down and overall rents have gone up. This is just one example of a policy that doesn't work. Do you think people are starting to see through what they're trying to sell people, that these policies broadly don't work?
I don't know. There's a lot of Democrats who like socialism, a shocking number of Democrats who like socialism more than capitalism. So are they seeing through it? Is that what Hong represents in Wisconsin? Or was she just an example of a profoundly bad candidate who couldn't even get the backing of the all-stars on the socialism side that she needed? So she seems a little bit like a one-off to me. Can I talk about Minnesota for a second?
Yes, please.
Rarely do I get to say anything positive about Minnesota. But for the first time in 24 years, I think Republicans have a chance to win a Senate seat.
Okay.
Because the Democrats nominated Peggy Flanagan. Why does that matter? She was the lieutenant governor of Minnesota during all the fraud, okay? So Minnesotans of all stripes care about that. She was sitting in the number 2 seat, and she has tried to say, don't look at me, I was just a lieutenant governor. This was the governor's problem, okay? Her opponent in the primary was Angie Craig, Congresswoman Angie Craig. This is what Angie Craig said on the campaign trail to Peggy Flanagan in Minnesota about that. She said, and this is, Republicans are going to use this all day long, "It pisses me off that you completely put all the responsibility on the governor of Minnesota when you were the number 2 elected leader in Minnesota during that period." Flanagan, hardcore leftist, okay? She's running against Michelle Tafoya, who has said, "I'm talking about fraud all day long." That's interesting to me. That tells me that Minnesota, the Democrats in Minnesota may have overstepped here, and it's going to give sane people a chance to make a few things right.
Okay, so we're back to believing that some voters can be rational, look at the facts.
Give them the right issues.
And say, this is not working. Having said that, I still don't love the way socialism is sort of, as a topic, sweeping the nation, even if the majority of Americans aren't behind it, Dagan. The fact that we're talking about it and it's becoming more mainstream is what scares me.
I want to raise the issue, and you brought it up, about the polling going into this race. So Francesca Hong, and these were the polls, the last 5 polls, they had her up 22 points, 18 points, 25 points, 29 points, and 20 points. And she lost by 0.5 of 1 percentage point, maybe 0.6 of 1%. And also, Cauchy had it wrong. They had her chances of winning at 94.9%. But go back to Abdul Al-Sayed in Michigan in the primary there. He was up on the average of the last 5 polls before his primary. He had a 14-point lead, and he won by 1 percentage point. And I know the pollsters will say, oh, well, the primary voters are very hard to poll because you don't know who will go out and vote. But these polls were so wrong, and every one was so wrong, and had these socialist candidates so far ahead. You have to ask the question, are they suppressing people? Are they suppressing Democrat voters by or at least trying to, by having these socialists so far ahead? That why are the polls off? What is going on? Looks like thumb on the scale. Who wants this outcome? Is what about the data? Why are the polls so off? Why are the polls so bad? What is the motivation here?
Yeah. These are all good
because
questions.
Are you suppressing the vote?
Which is also why yesterday on Harris Faulkner's show, she had a former Wisconsin governor who said, when the general election comes, you really need to be wary of these polls, and you need to get out and vote regardless of what the polls say, because every vote counts in this state. But I hear you on skewing the numbers in that way. Jerry, what stands out to you?
Well, I couldn't help myself but go and look at some of our competitors and what they were saying as the votes were all coming in on this. And I wanted to read to you what Chris Matthews was saying about the DSA on MSNBC. We don't call it MSNBC anymore.
MS Now.
MS Now.
There you go.
He says, there's a big tent theory out there, right? The Democrats are all it's going to come together. And he says, We're going to get rid of ICE, not just ICE. We're going to get rid of the border. We're not going to have a border anymore. We're not going to effectively control people entering and leaving the country. Get rid of prisons. Get rid of the Pentagon. And then he says, well, the problem with the big tent defense is every Democrat has to defend all this, his words, crap coming from the left. They've got to say, I believe in all this crazy stuff, and that makes me a Democrat. And so he's saying that's just not defendable. I think that what's going on here is shaking Democrats, conventional Democrats, to their core. And even so, when you look at the numbers, membership by Americans in the Democratic Socialist Party, 0.035%. The numbers are not impressive. It's a wave election, it's sentiment, it's popularity, and even style that is getting people behind these candidates.
Can I just add to that? And it'll be fascinating to watch, as Brian was pointing out, how Minnesotans feel about the issues. And it'll be curious to see if the mainstream Democrat Party starts leaning more and more towards actual policies that these socialists are pushing. And I would submit to you, they are when it comes to their signature issue, which is M4A. Medicare-for-All. We just had this Cato report come out, the guy that was on Varney earlier, saying that Medicare-for-All just alone over the next 10 years costs 35, 40 trillion on the low end, up to 75 trillion on the high end. And, you know, Minnesota voters are going to look at that and say, wait a minute, I'm signing up for this? You're sending a person to the Senate to advocate for that?
Well, particularly when you combine it with all the stories about how these government programs get ripped the heck off by people, and the lieutenant governors and governors in place don't do a thing about it. So you marry runaway spending with the fact that so much of it gets wasted. I think that maybe that doesn't get the attention of the DSA Socialist Democrat. It gets the attention of the independent.
I think everybody, Democrats, well, they're not going to run against their own, but Republicans need to use what Democrats have always used against them, granny off the cliff. Because if you're advocating for an expansion of Medicare, you are advocating basically depriving people who are on Medicare right now from resources. Because, as I've pointed out, Medicare is Part B, that is outpatient care, and Part D, half of that is funded through general income tax revenue. General revenue funds roughly half of that right now. So if you're going to siphon revenue, income tax revenue away for something else, like an expansion of Medicare, then what are you doing rather than fixing the problem that is staring us in the face? What are you doing to the people, the elderly people who are on Medicare right now?
Right.
You are depriving them of the care that they were promised. So
there's going to be less care, fewer doctors.
Well,
it's going
yeah.
to be a dramatic change in healthcare in this country, and people aren't going to be able to get what they need. We were talking in the break before the show even began about how in this new economy, if DSA were to take it over, you'd have to know the right guy to talk to get something done.
Which is just
It's not that you have a right to go fix something.
You can't overstate it. I mean, aside from shoving granny off the cliff, it fundamentally dismantles private healthcare insurance plans, whether it's employer supported or the private marketplace. They're gone. It ends those programs.
But Griff, they're onto something though, because people arguably hate health insurance companies more than they hate big tech. So they know what they're doing.
Right.
So when Abdul Al-Sayed, the way that he frames it is quite smart. The math is not mathin'.
Right.
Yeah, the math is not mathing, but remember how upset people were when Obama said you can keep your health care,
Yes.
you can keep your doctor if you like them?
No.
And it wasn't the case. In this case, it's gone. 220 million Americans.
I know,
Nobody.
but Obamacare is not. Obamacare, that's the argument.
Right.
From the left, Obamacare didn't go far enough.
Right.
That all Obamacare did was hand money to the health insurance companies that the Democrat socialists hate. So be very careful. The Republicans need to craft an argument that is like, we have socialized health insurance. It's called Medicare. If you move on and don't fix what we have, which is going broke, you will crush elderly Americans. That's what they need to talk about.
Good point.